133 of a total number of survivors. Most of the women were aged between 18 and 45 years. Now, there is a push in Nigeria for federal laws concerning domestic violence and for a stronger national response to domestic violence issues. But taking a look at this spate of violence, what could make a man or woman beat or kill the other they claimed to have loved? Why should a once happy home be turned to a home of sorrow? Is there a way out of this current trend, or have we totally lost it? These and other related issues will be discussed in Panorama today, coming to you live from the Lagos Network Center of the Nigerian Television Authority. And don't forget that you can follow this news broadcast live on our website at nta.ng/live and on YouTube at NTA News Online. You can also visit our Facebook page at NTA Network News, our Twitter handle at NTA News Now, and on Instagram at NTA Network for updates. I am Adeola Komiakiri. The federal government is seeking new investors to revive the stalled Bras liquefied natural gas project. Minister of State Petroleum Resources Timothy Silva has pledged the government's commitment to the completion of the project abandoned over 17 years ago. A statement by Horatius Egwa, Senior Advisor, Media and Communications to Minister of State Petroleum Resources, says the minister was speaking during an inspection of the project site in Tuan Bras, Bayelsa State, with management of Greenville NLG, an interested investor in the Bras liquefied natural gas. Silva said government is desirous of completing the project because of the manifold economic benefits it will bring to the nation. The Bras liquefied natural gas, which has trains 1 to 4 concept with an annual projected capacity of 8.4 million metric tons, was initiated in 2005 with a groundbreaking ceremony performed by former President Olusegun Obasanjo on March 14, 2007. The minister, who was joined on tour of the project site by the chairman and managing director Greenville LNG, Eddie Van den Breck, and Ritu Sahawala, said the federal government would give the project top priority because of its present policy thrust in gas exploration in the country. He reiterates that the direction of the government as far as gas is concerned is to use gas as transition fuel and also to use it to diversify the nation's economy. The minister acknowledged the challenges faced in successfully executing the project in the past, noting that the government would do everything possible to encourage Greenville NLG in investment in the multi-billion-dollar BNLG. He gave an assurance that the project will pull through this time and government will do everything possible to ensure that the final investment decision is taken as soon as possible. The minister reiterates the government that Nigeria has enough gas reserve and is encouraging anyone with capacity to bring in their investments. Present investors in the Bras NLG project are the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Company Limited, Eni and Total Energies. The federal government is requesting all Nigerian science, engineering, and technology professionals, both at home and in the diaspora, to file in their data on a newly developed database system meant for the registration of indigenous innovators and contractors. National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion, NOTAP, has directed these professionals to register their profiles with the office through the website www.notap.gov.ng or https://dnp.notap.gov.ng for proper documentation, as this will assist NOTAP and other MDAs and ministries to assess the database in search of indigenous experts in carrying out construction contracts for the development of a country. This move, the Director General of NOTAP says, is in line with the implementation of the Presidential Executive Order Number 5, which is key to improving local content in public procurement with science, engineering and technology components.
And that company got the award and they produce an excellent software for us to operate. I'm telling you, when they came and demonstrated this application, everybody was happy and proud that this is coming from Nigeria. So if we don't give Nigerians the chance, we may not see the best out of them. So we're encouraging other organizations also to follow suit and take lead from what NOTAP does to encourage Nigerians to come out with applications. Even our technology transfer registration platform, we have now fully digitalized. Instead of manual application treatment, we now do it online. And that application was also developed by a local indigenous Nigerian.
Database platform, which he says was designed by an indigenous software developer, will be synchronizing the initial 7,000 manual entries of current registered engineering personnel, and the database helps to seamlessly be constantly updated. Minister of Transportation Chibuike Rotimi Amechi advocates active participation of a traditional institution in the governance process. He made the appeal at a consultation meeting with traditional rulers in the southwest on his presidential aspiration. Oyinaya Kaluoka reports.
Ile-Ife, the ancient city in Osun State, rich in cultural history, gave a warm reception to the Minister of Transportation and his entourage. At the Oni of Ife's palace, the minister, accompanied by friends and APC stalwarts, called for consultation of traditional institutions and governance due to their closeness to the people and the critical role they play.
In the Imperial Majesty, one of the critical issues that I want this country to look at is the relevance of the traditional institution, because a lot of things are getting out of hand. You can't be a president in Abuja and know what is happening in Ife.
Thank you for your full of praises for the minister in the development of the transportation sector in Nigeria. They only prayed for him.
Pray for you from the throne of Oduduwa and this throne of our ancestors.
At Ado Ekiti, the capital of Ekiti State, the traditional ruler gave his royal blessings and prayers to the minister.
To crisscross this great country of ours.
While at Ondo State Government House in Akure, where the minister was received by the deputy governor, he stated that federal government is committed to linking major cities and towns in Nigeria by rail.
I'm going to consult Akure from Akure to Akure. It's not politics, it's awarded. It's awarded. Where we are negotiating the laws. Once we finish negotiation, we'll commence construction.
Oyinaya Kaluoka, NTA News.
Animal hides among Nigerians is common. There are some people who cannot do without pieces of animal hides in their meals. In this report, Hingenojin Adams tells us NAFDAC's position on that.
Animal hides is used for various purposes. Apart from serving as vital component for the production of bags, shoes, belts, and even wares, its consumption rate has grown rapidly. Animal hides is a local delicacy that complements other sources of protein like meat and fish. Its crunchy texture gives it a special place in pots of soups. Consumable animal hides come in different types.
White commodity, the one with the roasted.
Its place of pride in local delicacies is driven by various reasons among many Nigerians.
When it comes to pomo, I don't play with it, especially when it's well dyed with sauce.
For the lovers of pomo, Kanda or Ganda as the case may be, there is bad news coming from the nation's food regulatory body, NAFDAC. Recently, the agency sent a warning to the public that there are contaminated animal hides in circulation in Lagos and the effects of consuming them are scary.
Once it's prepared, it's boiled, and it's presented as common, you will not know what the process has been through, except you take it to the laboratory to extract some of this chemical from them before you can know. So anybody can fall victim of it. Some of these things are actually processed to be used for hide and skin, and have a different of treatment in that of chemical usage. So because of economic consideration, sometimes people are under pressure to divert the one that's meant for leather work for human consumption.
Those resin levels can be very high and they can give an immediate effect by way of food poisoning and even death. Or they can be taken over time. That will also translate to virtually the same thing.
NAFDAC is warning those involved in selling industrial animal hides to desist or face the wrath of the law. In Lagos, Hingino John Adams, NTA News.
Africa. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has declared a state of national disaster in South Africa. This comes a week after terrible floods left at least 443 people dead in the Durban area on the east coast. In a televised address, the president said the cabinet met in special session and decided to declare a state of national disaster while referring to the situation as a humanitarian disaster. Some 10,000 troops have been deployed to the affected areas to assist the overwhelmed relief efforts. The week-long downpour has led to deadly floods and landslides in KwaZulu-Natal, where most of the casualties have so far been recorded. You are watching Panorama on the network service of the NTA. Let's take a short break. More news when we return. But don't forget to follow this news broadcast live on our website at nta2.ng/live and on our other social media platforms. Welcome back. The increasing rate of domestic violence is such that requires a multidimensional approach and awareness campaigns to help reduce the societal menace to the barest minimum. These and more views of a cross-section of Nigerians in curbing this ugly trend. Amaka Owo reports.
Shows that 1 in every 3 women are likely to suffer domestic violence in their relationships or from an intimate partner.
If you love somebody you don't hate, love does not hate, love does not get angry. And when it gets to that level, you should think again.
People should be patient. People should not take a human being like rag. People should know what they are destroying is the temple of the Lord.
This does not mean that the male folk are left out, as some are also survivors of domestic violence.
The core thing is for us to be able to nip it in the bud from home. That is, have your children brought up in the proper way.
Experts say domestic violence is caused by several factors and has ripple effects on the victims and by extension to others within the immediate environment.
The children who go through this kind of life growing up, it creates something in their minds that, oh, yes, when I get married, I could treat my wife like this, or I could treat my husband like this.
Some stakeholders are of the view that the more victims stay in an abusive relationship, the more the physical and emotional damage the person suffers.
I mean, how does a man beat you and you think there's nothing you can do? I mean, you just think you are stuck. We need to let women, the girls know, that they must empower themselves and that, they are worth so much so that no man can ever push them down and they will stay down.
If there is abuse and there is pure abuse, it is important for the woman who is being abused to make sure that she doesn't just keep silence.
They are also clamoring for more institutional support in stemming the tide of domestic violence in Nigeria, as some of the cases have led to untimely death of the victims. In Lagos, Amaka Owo, NTA News.
And joining me live via Zoom is Anita Defuye, a life coach. Good to have you join us at Panorama, Anita.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. It's a pleasure.
Okay, you saw the background reports to what we shall be talking about, domestic violence. So now, the statistics of domestic violence in the country, particularly in Lagos, is alarming. A case in question is that of Osinachi, a gospel singer who was allegedly killed by her husband due to, domestic violence. How frightening is the situation?
Thank you. So it is quite frightening, to be honest, and even much more so, like you mentioned about the statistics. It says that 1 in 3 women actually experience domestic violence or intimate partner violence in Nigeria, and it is really frightening to say the least, because it's a lot more rampant than we realize, than a lot of us care to admit, and that's what makes it frightening. But even much more so is the fact that, when these things happen, we talk about it, and then everyone gets angry for a while, but then we soon forget with the next news that comes up. And for me, I think that's what really even makes it more frightening than even the fact that these things happen, and that they happen more rampantly than we realize.
Okay, now, what could be responsible for the increase in domestic violence in recent times? Could you share?
Well, a number of things. And I think this is not peculiar to Nigeria only or Lagos State only. All over the world, it was reported that domestic violence increased during the pandemic. So clearly there's something about the pandemic that brought about an increase in domestic violence and, quite frankly, other forms of abuse, including even sexual abuse. And so when you think about it from that perspective, it is not peculiar to Nigeria or to Lagos alone. However, there are other factors that, even pre-pandemic, have always existed and continue to prevail. Some of it, and I'll just mention some of it includes, low income earning. When people don't have enough to take care of their families, and they don't have a way of, controlling their anger, and they're not emotionally intelligent, then they tend to turn to domestic violence as a way of, dealing with their emotions, which doesn't excuse anybody, quite frankly. For some others, it is that they themselves have experienced violence growing up, either by watching a father beat their mom, or, maybe even they themselves have been victims of violence of some sort. And when they grow into adults, they start to behave in the exact same manner, because that is what has been shown to them as an appropriate way of behaving. That doesn't make it appropriate, quite unfortunately.
It's been said that 1 in every 3 women, suffer domestic violence. Now, as a life coach, what roles can government, religious bodies, and family systems play in addressing this menace that has eaten so deep, in society?
That is a very great question. I will start with government. Governments have to set laws in place, but it's not enough to set the laws. It's also important that they implement those laws. For instance, we have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. I hope I got that right. This was put forward in 2015 by the National Assembly. But the question remains, how well have they implemented that act? How well have they enforced that act? And how many people really have been brought to book from that act? And not just brought to book and then they get billed the next day because they have the money to do so. But until, as government, we take our laws very seriously and realize that laws are made to protect the vulnerable in our society.
All right. Okay. So
now,
now,
religious.
because of time, I'll to quickly move on to other questions. What are the remote and immediate consequences of persons being victim of domestic violence?
Okay. So some of the consequences, really, a major one includes just dehumanizing the person. when people have experienced domestic violence, we tend to erode their humanity, that erodes their confidence, and that erodes their ability to contribute meaningfully to society and live a purposeful life. And I think that's one of the biggest things for me in domestic violence and some of the consequences that we see. And when we continue to allow this to prevail, we're also telling our next generation that this is an appropriate way to do things, and it is not. And what begins to happen is we have a failed system that is, that has its foundation on violence, and that would not work. And so it's important that at the individual level, at the family level, and at society level, that we deal with the issues that causes domestic violence.
Anita, I know that when people hear about domestic violence, they tend to say, okay, it's the woman's fault. They now, blame the victim instead of the person that is actually the violent one. What advice do you have for society? Because we tend to just, okay, she must have done something to warrant the domestic violence that she was meted on her.
That conversation is one of my favorite ones. Because the truth is, nobody really deserves whatever form of violence that another human being would met on them, and that's the simple truth. And so there's actually a term for that, where they blame the victim. It's called re-victimization. And what we do.
Well, thank you, Anita Defuye, for your time. That's what time will permit us to, take on Panorama today.